All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Alliance podcast. Today is January 1st, 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, thanks for joining us on today's episode. I know you got plenty of time that you're spending with your families, hanging around for the holidays, so I appreciate you guys checking in with us as we prepare to take you into this weekend's season finale against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. We're probably not going to talk about that game too much. It is kind of wholly irrelevant for the Lions season and the Lions offseason and things of that nature. So what we are going to talk about, we're going to hit a couple of New Year's resolutions off the top. Going to get to you guys with some news
for the
and
Lions,
notes.
not ours. Yeah. You don't need to worry about me going to Gold's Gym.
Yeah. Gold's Gym.
I don't know. It was the first one I thought of.
We're going to hit you with some news and notes, basically tell you how the Lions plan to deploy their roster in this Week 18 meaningless game, you could call it, and then go through some of the team's upcoming free agent class here for the 2026 offseason. Just going to kind of go through and give our initial thoughts on each player, and should take us to the end of the episode. So thanks you again for joining us. Before we get to all that, I'm Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Richard Silva. Richard, what are your New Year's resolutions?
I actually don't have any. I've just said the gym because that is not actually a resolution. Maybe to eat better. That's probably the best one.
Okay. What does that look like for you?
I don't know. A leafy green at some point in the next month.
Okay. Yeah. One a month. That's a good place to start.
One leafy green a month.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
So the first New Year's resolution I wanted to bring to you for the Lions, and I've got three. The first one is to fix the offensive line. Obviously, that's the big one coming into this offseason. How do the Lions fix their offensive line? It was a problem that plagued them really from week one, really from training camp. I mean, we watched this team in training camp. We had this thought in our head that the defense was way ahead of the offense. We didn't really know why. It's hard to kind of see the forest from the trees in those environments a little bit. Thought maybe it was because the Lions defense had taken a major step forward. Obviously, the turnover on the offensive side of the ball, the losing Ben Johnson, stuff like that, kind of did give us pause about what the offense had looked like to that point, as well as the departure of Frank Ragnow. But that is kind of the one thing, and especially the center position, that they need to figure out going into this next offseason is center.
Absolutely. And obviously there's two different ways that you could approach fixing that position, because I think at this point, it's safe to assume Graham Glasgow is not going to be the starting center on this team next year. Yeah. You're going to have a new guy. So it's either draft, free agency, or both. But in terms of a week one option, draft or free agency, I think me and you are kind of in lockstep here, where I lean more towards free agency veteran than I do
or trade.
I forget who was one of the other reporters today. We were talking about this, and he said, maybe like a Carlton Davis-esque trade, but for a center. I think that makes a ton of sense. I just don't think you can roll the dice on a young player. One, and like I said, roll the dice of we hope this guy's good. And then even beyond that, he can be good, but what if he struggles for the first 2 months of the season because he's a rookie? And that's what happens sometimes. I think Tate Ratledge has turned a corner, but in week one, it was really bad. I don't think you can really afford that at center next year when you need to win. There is no gray area. You need to win next year.
I completely agree. And Dan Campbell said Monday that he has not ruled out, the possibility that Tate Ratledge could eventually become a center in this league. However, to your point, you can't really plan on that for 2026. You kind of got to figure it out, get him some reps in training camp, see if it works, see if it clicks at all, see if anything has changed since you trotted him out there for the first 3 days of training camp last season. But to your point, if you go in there with, and we're all obviously operating under the assumption that we don't know what's going to happen with Taylor Decker. So that's another big kind of key in all of this is he sounds like a guy who's nearing retirement. That shoulder injury that, it plagued him all season. He got off-season surgery. He missed a big chunk of training camp, and then he really only practiced 4 or 5 times this year, that I can recall, where he was a full participant on the field. And so that's something you have to think of as well. But to the grander point, I think if you have some stabilization at that center position, what you have in Tate Ratledge. So that's, you have if you go out and you get a center, you have your entire right side of the line figured out. And if you get Decker back, which is not a given, you might have to address that as well. But I think you feel okay going into training camp being okay, one of these 3 prospects will have to win the left guard position. And
Miles Frazier or, any of these young guys.
Yeah, maybe Mahogany has a resurgent training camp, and he really picks up on the pass protection and just, works out some of the inconsistencies that he's shown this year. But I think that is kind of the
dream,
the number,
the realistic dream.
Yeah, the realistic dream. But I think in that scenario, let's say you go out and you get a Tyler Linderbaum, a Connor McGovern, Caden Mays from the Carolina Panthers, also is set to be a free agent this year. Let's say you get one of those guys. I think, like, you feel, it's not a pipe dream. Like, it's pretty simple to see how they could end up with one of those types of guys. And so, as big of a job and as important of a job as it is this offseason, I also don't think that it's unrealistic.
Yeah, no, it's not easy, because if it was easy, everyone would have a good offensive line, but it's simple. Like, you can see the path towards it. Like you said, you get a veteran guy in here that's good, whether it's McGovern, Mays, or I think, maybe Linderbaum is a little bit of a pipe dream. Maybe not. You know what I mean? Maybe this is the offseason. I know they signed DJ Reed last offseason, but maybe this offseason is the one where Brad Holmes shells out for one guy in free agency. Because I think Linderbaum would probably command upwards of $20 million a year, something like that. But you get a guy like Linderbaum in, to your point about how quick of a fix this could be. Yeah, he's not. Maybe he will, or maybe he won't be as good as Frank Ragnow, but he'll at least be close. And we saw what this offensive line did last year when they had Frank Ragnow. You know what I mean? So yeah, I totally see it as well. And then to your point about if Taylor comes back, absolutely. Then roll the ball out there between Miles Frazier, Christian Mahogany, or any other young guy that you add between now and then, and one of you win the job. And then if not, if the guy you pick in week 1 doesn't win it, then you try the other guy in week 2 and beyond.
Another thing you have to do as it pertains to Decker is, at the end of this season, like, the Lions need to know exactly where he's at. And I think that they had an idea of where Frank was at, over the course of last offseason, the early stages of offseason, when they were going through the draft of free agency. I think it was Sheila Hamp who even said on the video of Tate Ratledge getting drafted, like, can this guy play center? So these were things that they were thinking about, but maybe not thinking about soon enough. Like, I know that in my final drive last week, I said Brad Holmes has drafted something like 36 players since he's been GM of the Lions, and not a single one of them have had the ability to snap the football in an NFL game, which the track record of his draft picks and the successes that he's had are hard to argue with. But, when we talk about what more could Brad have done, there's no foolproof plan where you go out there and say, okay, if they would have just taken this guy instead of this guy, it's just, you can't get into that game where
the results.
Right, exactly. But the fact that they really did not give themselves a chance at all to solve the center position through the draft, I think is probably the biggest misstep of that. But
I was going to say, correct me if I'm wrong, outside of Penei Sewell, Tate Ratledge is the only non-day 3 draft pick that they've spent on an offensive lineman, correct?
Yes, they went 3 straight years without taking an offensive lineman before day 3, which, again, got a lot of good players with those picks. Right. And hindsight is always 20/20. But if you're looking at maybe where some things could have been done and prepped kind of in the meantime, I think that's an easy place to look at. And the same applies really to tackle as well, because like I said, you have to get a good idea of where Taylor is at the end of the year. And if there's any doubt at all that he might be considering retirement, like, you kind of, for as good of a player as he's been and the culture guys he's been, you kind of just got to be like, okay, well, we're just going to plan as if you're not going to be here. And I don't know what that looks like. You probably don't have enough money to go get a player of the same caliber as we're talking about for the center position. But I do think that, there is a high degree of urgency because, again, you haven't drafted anybody that you would feel comfortable putting out there over a 17-game season, in a season where you have aspirations to win a Super Bowl. Like, Giovanni Manu could absolutely come to training camp next year looking like a brand new player, but it's tough for me to be okay with betting on that after what we saw over these last 4 months.
I'm curious what they're going to invest in that position, regardless of Taylor's. Well, obviously, if Taylor does retire, you have to go get a starter.
Yeah.
But if Taylor does return, like, how much do they still add to that position? Because, like you said with Manu, like, maybe he starts training camp next year and he's just taking the leap, and it's like, oh man, like we got the succession plan already on the roster. But beyond him, I mean, Dan Skipper has been the team's swing tackle this past year, but the Lions front office and coaching staff let us know what they thought of Skipper at the end of training camp this year, where they were ready to replace him with Jamarco Jones. Was it Jamarco Jones? No,
Yep,
it was
Jamarco.
Thank you, with Jamarco Jones, and then Jamarco gets hurt, and then that opens the opportunity for Skipper to be the swing tackle again for another year. But they showed us in training camp they kind of already want to move on. So
he'll be another year older.
And he'll be another year older
for a player who's already past 30.
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Regardless, I am interested in how much, if at all, they invest into the position. Yeah, he's 31 years old, Dan Skipper is.
Yeah, absolutely. So New Year's resolution number 2, and this is kind of a multifaceted resolution. You got to fix the defensive scheme / edge rusher / all of what's been going on against the pass in the front 7 over these last 5 years. Like, call it 5 years outside of the nice 10-game stretch to begin last season. So, we talked about this, I think, a little bit, maybe last week or after the post-game pod, but they got a really good season out of Al-Quadin Muhammad. And you could look at the production that he had and the production that Aiden Hutchinson had. I mean, I bet you could look. I haven't looked at it. I bet they're the most productive in terms of sacks and pressures, edge rushing duo in the league.
I mean, they're the first Lions duo to each have 10 sacks in the same season since 1983.
Which sounds great. However, you didn't trust Al-Quadin Muhammad to play most of the snaps. He played 43% of snaps season long in a season where I think Marcus Davenport missed 8 or 9 games.
Yes. And so that if you talk about like snaps that were played when a player was healthy, Davenport's played 55% of snaps. So like that's your defensive end too. Like regardless of what the sack numbers say, you're putting this player on the field more than this other player. Yes. So Marcus Davenport is your defensive end too, and you have not gotten enough from him.
Absolutely. And you cannot go into this next season, you can't go into him next season with Marcus Davenport being your edge 2 anyways. And, we've talked about how maybe they were planning on Levi Onwuzurike to eat up some of those snaps.
Pascal.
Pascal. But Pascal had back season off surgery pretty early in the offseason, I believe. And
you said back season off surgery.
Oh, back surgery in the offseason, pretty early in the offseason, if I recall. And then Levi, who, for a player with a breakout 47 pressure season, didn't get anything in free agency. He ends up signing back here for 1 year, $4 million. That says to me, because this was a knee issue that has been lingering since the offseason, that says to me that they knew about it in some degree, or maybe some teams knew about it in some degree. There's just no way that you bring back that player on a 1 year, $4 million deal if there's something up. So I feel like there was some stuff going on there where, we don't know all the answers, but again, you were counting on these guys who have been historically hurt with some serious stuff. Like Levi was a back injury. Maybe that's part of the reason. Maybe it wasn't the new injury at all that played into that. But again, regardless, you counted on a guy with a very spotty injury history, enough to where he felt that he had to come back here on a 1 year, $4 million deal to have a chance to maybe get paid or even set himself up for this offseason to get paid. So I think we knew the warts of this defensive end group going into the season. And sure enough, the sack numbers are great. I think they end up, on the season, they're somewhere like 4th in the NFL.
Yeah, they have 48 sacks.
Ton of sacks. But beyond the raw numbers, they could not get home when they needed to. There was never a time where it was like, defense needs this stop. I believe that they're going to get home. I feel like they're in a more advantageous position than the offense. Teams could get to 3rd and 15, 3rd and 18, and I'd be like, oh, let's see how they're going to pick this up. I think back to the Steelers game where on that final drive where the Lions needed to get a stop to get the ball back and go score, the Steelers have a 10-yard holding penalty on 1st down, sets up 2nd and 20, and just immediately, Aaron Rodgers just bang right to DK Metcalf, 20 yards, and it's just there goes all the momentum that you had from that penalty. And I just felt like that happened so often this year, and I never felt like when the offense or defense were out on the field in the high leverage moment, I never felt like the Lions defense was going to get a win.
For all of the criticisms that have come at Aiden Hutchinson this year, I want to remove those for a second, because I think people, me included, you included, it's like, dang, man, you got paid like that guy, because you have been that guy for in a lot of moments this year or in your career, and this year it hasn't felt like you like Micah Parsons can take over a game. Didn't feel like Aiden Hutchinson took over many games this year. Regardless, separate that for a second because I think he's the least of your issues, Aiden Hutchinson. Peel back the onion on everything else. 15 of their 48 sacks have come from non-defensive linemen. That's linebackers, that's safeties. Brian Branch had a couple. Jack Campbell's had a ton. Derek Barnes had a ton. Alex Anzalone's had a ton. And again, I've said this before on the podcast, you can't just get rid of those sacks, but that's not really what we're talking about when we're having this conversation right now. So 15 of those sacks came from non-defensive linemen. And if I remember correctly, I wrote it in a story recently, in 8 games this year, not in a consecutive 8-game stretch, but if you pull different 8 games, they've played 16 so far. So half of their games, they've only had 10 sacks in those 8 games. So it's like they've been neutralized for half the season, basically. So they've been spectacular against. I don't think it's like a linear line between like better offensive line, but it's generally in that direction that they play worse teams, they tee off, they play better teams, they struggle, they mightily struggle. So that, and then also you talk about like time to pressure, which I know is like the popular stat to push back on everything. I think it was if I'm not mistaken, the Lions have averaged, according to Next Gen Stats, this was heading into, this was after the Lions played on Christmas, but before all the other teams played on Sunday. So they averaged 2.86 seconds time to pressure. That's the 4th close in the NFL behind the Bears, Bengals, and Bills, who all were, at the time that I wrote this, again, before they played on Sunday, they were bottom half of the league in sacks. So I think some of the Lions sack total is inflated and like funny money, basically. Like, you know what I mean? It's a little bit fake. And I feel bad saying that because like we spent all of last year saying like, oh, like the pressures are great, but you got to get the sacks. And now I feel like it's the opposite. Now I feel like, yeah, you're getting some of these sacks, but if you really like look at it deeper, it's like, no, the pass rush is still very flawed.
Yeah. And like Dan Campbell has said it a lot. When you put pressure on one area of the field or you try to alleviate pressure in one particular area of the field, which in this case would be the defensive line. They're trying to alleviate the pressure of getting to the quarterback by sending extra blitzers, sending extra bodies at him. That puts extra stress on everywhere else on the field. So they're having to put extra stress everywhere else on the field because they couldn't get home with 4. And that was like the big lesson from the Eagles Super Bowl win was they didn't blitz once in that game. And obviously you can't just be like, oh, that's how they did it. So, you know, what the Lions need to do that to win. No, but to a certain extent, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you have to be able to get home with 4. And that includes your top pass rusher taking over a game on 3rd down, 3rd and 8, when you need it. You need that offense to be scared lifeless by that number 1 pass rusher. And to your point, I don't think it really happened this season.
And it also includes him taking over, but also anything from the interior. They got next to nothing from the interior this year as a pass rusher, outside of a handful of Aleem McNeil games. Against the Packers on Thanksgiving, he was good. And his return against the Buccaneers, he was good. He was a wrecking ball. But he'll be the first to say that he had to play better. But again, he's coming off the ACL, so anybody else. And then maybe Levi was supposed to be that guy, but he wasn't healthy. Point is, they got next to nothing from the interior from a pass rush perspective.
Kind of in that same vein, my 3rd resolution is better injury luck. And this obviously applies to the defense because we were talking about the back end of things and how, you know, things really fell apart in part because Kirby Joseph was not there to help get a turnover every now and then. And Brian Branch over these last 3 games has been out with his Achilles injury. And, you know, you've missed Taron Arnold, and DJ Reed hasn't looked the same since his hamstring injury. In addition to all of that, like on the field stuff, you've also really not gotten anything from your last 2 draft classes strictly because of the injury luck. Like if Taron Arnold doesn't get hurt, I know he's a polarizing player on this team. He was having a really like good second half of the season, or he was starting to kind of turn things around.
When he got hurt against the Bengals, it was like, oh, he stacked like 2.5 good games together.
And that was an issue for him all season long, like dating back to training camp. He probably had like 7 or 8 injuries like in that span before he eventually
ankle, shoulder.
And you know, you look at these last 2 draft classes, you got Taron Arnold, season-ending IR, Ennis Rakestraw, season-ending IR during training camp. Giovanni Manu goes on IR after week 5. He plays 1 game, has to go on injured reserve. Sione Vaki, running back, he has been healthy for certain stretches this season, but like I don't think he's ever actually gone on injured reserve. But he was one of those guys where it was like every week, oh, Vaki's not at practice.
Yeah.
Oh, Vaki's back out there in this game. Bam. Oh, Vaki's already out, whatever. So, so that is, I think, something that they hope for. Mekhi Wingo, the next or 6th round pick, he was a healthy scratch. And again, 6th round pick, you're not, hoping for too much, not putting that much stock into it, but you would have liked to see him get some more snaps after a promising rookie season. And then obviously Christian Mahogany missed significant time with his broken fibula. So that was the 2024 draft class. The 2023 draft class, you've had some injuries in there. Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, as we mentioned, 2 serious injuries. And we don't know what's going to become of that, how they're going to affect their impending extensions. And then this last draft class, Tyleik Williams, Ratledge, Isaac Tisla, they all stayed healthy. But at the back end, you got Dan Jackson, you got Ahmed Hassanin, guys who missed significant time. Miles Frazier, a guy who could have competed for a starting guard spot, but ultimately was out with a knee injury that he suffered during rookie minicamp. So lots of different ways that injuries have impacted this team, and they just need a little bit more luck, I think, going forward. All right, let's get into some news and notes here before we get on into the break. The big news item of the day. Well, a couple of big news items coming out of Tuesday. Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, both going on 97.1 The Ticket for their weekly radio appearances. But the big news of Wednesday morning was that Kingsley Eguakun, the center who has been with the Lions for 2 years, started their last 2 games, was on the practice squad the entire time, was poached by the Cleveland Browns, and he will be on their 53-man roster. Surprising move. I think a lot of us watched that performance and we said, wow, this still is not good enough to help the offensive line. But I do think that they were somewhat encouraged by what he showed through the first game or two. Obviously, the Vikings game was a whole different disaster on its own. He had a false start in the opening drive. He had the one snap before Goff was ready, maybe 2 snaps before Goff was ready to take it. So definitely some things that were like supreme negatives, but I feel like when you have a guy who's around for that long, like you can kind of get over those in terms of being like, okay, well, there's a goal in mind here. Like I said, they obviously trusted him enough to start in 2 do or die games, and here we are.
Yeah, so I thought you put it best when we were talking about this off camera earlier. Is that like it's not his departure is not like a big deal because he's a second year undrafted free agent that started 2 games. One was okay, one was maybe not so great. But initially it presented questions because it was like, this seems like weird and poor asset management, maybe, where it's like you said, you started this guy in 2 do or die games. And usually the way this works is if a player's on the practice squad, it's not a rule, it's not hard and fast or anything like that. But customarily, that player, if he's offered something from another team, will go back to the original team. So in this case, the way it usually works is the Browns approach Kingsley with the offer to join their active roster. Kingsley and his representation then go to the Lions and say, hey, I have this offer. Would you like to match it and keep me here in Detroit? And usually the team says yes or no. So when it comes out that he went to Cleveland, it's like, it's weird. Did the Lions tell him, no, see you. We don't really need you. And it's like, well, you just trusted this guy a couple weeks ago. And then talking to Dan Campbell today, he kind of filled in some of the gaps where it does make sense. It does sound like Kingsley and his representation did approach the Lions and say, hey, we have this opportunity. This is all according to Dan Campbell. The Browns promised Kingsley a starting job. I'm assuming for this week. That means because no way they promised him anything more than that.
Which doesn't make any sense. Like what are you going to gain from entering a new system at center, a position you've played just twice since college, and like it went horribly in the first.
Well, he was a center in college,
right?
But since coming out of college, yeah,
that was his first couple games playing, and. What makes you think it's going to go like any better?
So
Cleveland.
So Campbell said that the Browns promised him a starting job. The Lions did, and then Kingsley was like, "Well, I got to go where I'll have the better opportunity."
Yeah.
So he went, and Campbell was like, "Good for him. Like, wish him well. Hard worker. Hope he does well. All that stuff." I mean, I get it from Kingsley's perspective. Like, there's no guarantee he'll ever start again, like anywhere in the NFL. So I understand it. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for him to just roll into a new spot and start in, what is it? We're recording this. I mean, this comes out on New Year's Day and the Browns play on Sunday. So
yeah,
a handful of days to get ready.
Yeah. Going against that going against that Bengals D line though. Maybe
True.
not a bad place to get your feet wet.
True.
You know?
Maybe it was the
Put some good tape out there.
Galaxy brain play. But no, yeah, I think that's all it is for Kingsley, is trying to put out as much possible tape as you can before he enters free agency again this offseason.
Yep.
So yeah, I get it. It's just weird at first that whole situation.
Yeah. Couple bits of news on the radio. If you were a person who thought that Jared Goff could be on the I was going to say cutting room floor, but I don't think that
trade block.
Yeah, not trade block necessarily, but just that the Lions could potentially look to move off him anytime soon. That is not happening, according to Dan Campbell, who went on the radio on Tuesday and said, basically talked about how good of a season that Goff had despite the circumstances around him, and said, "quote He's going absolutely nowhere."
Yeah, and he said he's had a better season this year than he did last year. In Dan's professional opinion, obviously.
So there's that. And then on the other hand, another person that he was asked about, who we have less degree of confidence that he'll be back next season, is Lions defensive coordinator Kelvin Shepard. Dan just basically saying, look, he did a lot of good stuff. He was, really promising, but he is one of the things that they'll be looking at when they talk about everything. Dan Campbell saying after the loss to Minnesota that they will be looking at everything this offseason, including defensive coordinator, but still gave him a little bit of a vote of confidence.
I mean, he was very complimentary of Shepard, but he was asked point blank, like, okay, so he's going to be here next year, and he said, oh well, I got to think about some of those things after the season. My head's not even there yet.
Yeah,
which fair enough, but he did say that about Goff, and a little bit different because you're contractually tied to Goff. If you do try to move off of him with all the money still left on his deal, it's a little bit more complicated than it is a defensive coordinator. But he didn't do for Shepard what he did do for Goff. So very, very complimentary, but did not go all the way.
Yeah, I'm looking for the quote here. He said, quote, Shep has really grown this year. I think with any first-time coordinator, first-time coach, you go through a lot and you learn along the way. You make adjustments and you learn and you find things that you believe in. You throw other things to the side that don't fit. You find ways to adjust, and it's just part of the process. I think Shep's done a damn good job. There's always going to be things that you learn from this job, but I like Shep. And then he went on to say, basically just asked if that's something that they'll consider during the offseason, moving on from Shep. And he said, has my mind gone to the offseason right after the game for a day or so, 24 hours? Yeah, you go through a lot of it in your head, but most of it is about yourself. I mean, that's what most of it is. I think about myself because the bottom line is I'm the one who's not done a good enough job here. That's very evident. So I've got to figure out my own stuff here. What do I need to correct? And then I'll start working through the other stuff later. But we got one game left here. Yeah. So that is where he is at on Kelvin Shepard.
Jared Goff also had a little, I don't know how to say it. It was a little bit of news, but he talked about Frank Ragnow and the potential of him coming back. And other guys have talked about it. Hank Fraley talked about it at some point and said, I'm not, this is paraphrasing, but I'm not openly campaigning for him to come back, but door's certainly open, if he'd like to. I think Dan got asked something similar and basically said he has no inclination one way or the other based on what Frank has told him. But Jared spoke on the radio and he basically said, I don't think that's on the cards.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah,
was the quote. So there's that as well. However, who knows what Goff.
This is also whatever. Frank tried coming back 3 weeks after Dan said he has not spoken to Frank.
Yeah,
and Dan went on the radio and said, listen, I think if Frank wanted to play, he would have called me, and I haven't gotten a call from Frank. And then 3 weeks later, it's announced that he's trying to come back.
And listen, I think, maybe Phillip Rivers is inspiring a whole generation of retired football players to make a comeback. The Lions will not rest their starters against Chicago on Sunday, but they will maybe treat questionable a little bit differently. Yeah. Questionable going into a game. It's if the guy can play, he's playing, especially when you're a team like the Lions who needs every win, every game matters up until this one. At this point, it sounds like they may be erring on the side of caution. There's a couple of guys who have been, dealing with some significant injuries. We don't know what, has been bothering Penei Sewell, for example, but he wasn't at practice today. He and Amon-Ra St. Brown both briefly left the Vikings game. St. Brown coming back or not coming back because he got hurt on the final drive. And then Sewell came back in the game, but when he got hurt, it initially looked very, very serious. So that'll be something to watch out for. A number of guys, a number of veterans who, if this was an important game, maybe they would play, but because it is not an important game, we might see them get a little bit of rest.
Yeah, it was the ankle for Sewell. And then when you asked Dan Campbell on Monday about St. Brown, he said the knee is part of it. he's on the injury report with a knee and an ankle. So,
and that ankle injury, but if you recall, almost kept him out of the game against the Cowboys in Week 14.
Right. Neither of those guys practiced on Wednesday. A number of guys didn't practice on Wednesday. Alex Anzalone with a concussion. Thomas Harper with a concussion. Coyote Awashika had an illness. Tristan Colon had a wrist. Mahogany had an illness. Aleem McNeil, the abdomen issue that he entered last week with and then tried to play and then seemingly hurt it in that Vikings game and then didn't play the rest of the game after like the first quarter. He didn't practice. And then Sewell and St. Brown, like you said. Decker, Maddox, and Manu were limited. Decker was the shoulder/the illness. Maddox was the back/the illness, and Manu with the knee that he is still on IR. They have not activated him yet. Maybe he'll get activated this week, but as Dan has said, anything you get out of Manu, activating him was to set him up for next year, and Decker intends to play this week. So
yeah, Decker intends to play. The Lions intend to have him play. It'd be one thing if Decker wanted to play, but Campbell had already said, like, oh no, but no, they're going to let him go. Could be his last game as a Lion. You just talked to him in the locker room. What did you hear from him on that front?
Yeah, he held court a little bit, and he talked about that he doesn't want to make the decision about his future now because he doesn't want it to be emotional. He said he wants to finish the season, and he said the game is still important to him. This game in particular, not obviously the overarching game is important to him, but this game against Chicago, he said, because while this season has not gone as planned, he said that winning has become the expectation over the last few years. And he said that we have an opportunity to finish with a winning record. And he was like, that kind of sucks that that's the consolation prize, but it is still something that matters to him. So he said, it's important to him to play in this game and to try to win this game. And then he's going to hold off any decisions about potential retirement until after the season. He got asked about what were some of the most important things that he's going to consider. And he was like, let me get back to you. Like next week, let's talk about that because I don't want to make headlines right now.
Yeah. All right. Quick word from our sponsor.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back, generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service. So you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, back half of the show here at Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Alliance podcast. Thanks for tapping in with us. Be sure to press that rate, review, subscribe button, whichever brings you closer to this podcast, your favorite podcast. We're going to be doing episodes all off season long. We don't take breaks on this show. I think since we started our weekly episodes, I think we've taken off 1 week, and it might have been like 4th of July.
That sounds right.
But I think we might have even pre-recorded. So we don't take weeks off here at the Gridiron Gang podcast. So if you're pressing that subscribe button, you are never going to be disappointed. There's a lot of podcasts I listen to, especially this time of year. I get it. People spending time with their family, what have you. But it's like I go to the podcast page on the day that the podcast is supposed to be released. They don't have it out. That disappoints me. We don't want that for you. So go ahead, tap in, press the subscribe button. We'll be with you all off season long. Let's talk some free agents because the Lions have 29, 30?
30, I think.
30, which is more than half their active roster. We will start offensively. I don't know how you want to do this. Maybe we can just kind of discuss each guy as we
I think we should go position by position, and obviously some will warrant more discussion than others. Some guys will probably be 15 seconds. Some guys maybe 3 minutes. Sure. I think we could play it by ear. Maybe start on offense and then make our way down through there.
Let's do it. Quarterback, the only free agent that we have here is Kyle Allen.
We're not including practice squad guys.
Correct.
Everybody on the practice squad is a free agent.
So just 2 active quarterbacks on the Lions roster. One of them is Jared Goff, who is signed through 2028 or 29 or something like that.
2100.
2100. And then we also have Kyle Allen, who did not play this year. Another season where
took some kneel downs.
Yeah, took some kneel downs. Another season where Jared Goff has not really missed any time, which is, we talk about like a lot of the team's bad injury luck and things like that. But like the fact that Jared Goff has played pretty much every single game each of the last 3 seasons is like really awesome.
He's a tough dude, man. He is.
And so we haven't had to see him play, but when we did see him play during training camp, he was pretty great.
Yeah. And the preseason after the Hall of Fame game against the Chargers, where neither him nor Hendon Hooker were good, Allen very clearly took the reins after that.
I can't imagine that he'll have any sort of starting opportunity available to him when he goes to free agency this offseason. So I would imagine, just based on what we saw from him, he's kind of a high floor backup. maybe a little bit of upside somewhere in there, in the right offense. Has started games, a lot of game experience. So I would not be surprised in the slightest to see him back as a Lions backup quarterback next season.
Yeah, not at all. I think there's very much reason to believe that there will be mutual interest.
Jacob Saylor's running back. He's an exclusive rights free agent. So just probably, again, kind of like the not like the practice squad guys, but we'll probably just breeze through the exclusive rights free agents.
Usually that means those guys are coming back.
They're free.
If the Lions offer them a 1-year minimum deal, they can't negotiate with anybody else.
Yes.
So there's no reason why the Lions would not bring back a guy that has brought some value, and Sailors has on special teams.
Yeah.
So not much to talk about. He's probably going to be back.
Wide receiver Khalif Raymond. This is an interesting one because he was making a little bit of money on his last contract. He definitely deserved it, but I think he has become less explosive in the return game, and I am curious to see what they do with him this offseason because I don't think that he has as much of a defined role as he has in recent years. And I honestly think that, like, if he didn't have this built-in 2-time All-Pro resume on his punt return stuff, I feel like he probably would have been replaced by Tom Kennedy, full-time towards the end of the year when Tom Kennedy started coming on as a returner.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I keep coughing. I'm a little under the weather.
Another day that ends in Y.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that Khalif is still he makes a little bit of money on his current deal, which I understand people getting upset with, given that maybe he has lost a teeny bit of juice as a returner, and then as a receiver, he's kind of consistently been what he is over the last 2-3 years, which is 250, 300 receiving yards in that ballpark range. But I think now that he is coming off the books and you can get him on a new deal, I think he still provides value as wide receiver 4 or 5. And as your punt returner, maybe he's not, what he was when he was 28 years old, but I mean,
he doesn't really provide that much as a wide receiver again.
But I mean, but the Lions wide receivers have been mostly healthy, so the opportunity hasn't been there. And then when he has had opportunity, I don't know, he had 62 yards and a touchdown against Cowboys. I don't know what more you want from wide receiver 5.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Especially if you can get him back on a new deal that doesn't cost you as much as you already have.
Vetman.
Sure. Or a little bit
I'm in
more.
for Vetman. Tom Kennedy.
You're a Khalif Raymond hater.
I'm not a Khalif Raymond hater. Tom Kennedy will probably be back.
I mean, he hasn't this year. He's
the second longest tenured Lion.
Yeah, there's no reason why anything that happened this year would make us believe that he won't be back, at least on the practice squad next year.
I would even argue that it makes him more likely to be back because he got to play a little bit more than he has in recent years.
Absolutely.
So showed a lot as a returner and as a wide receiver as well. Tight end Shane Zylstra. I could see him being back, especially with Sam Laporta's future kind of uncertain. I think they like what he brings to the table as a pass catcher. Don't necessarily know the blocking is there, but I would be surprised if the Lions didn't try to bring back Shane Zylstra in some form, because I also don't necessarily know that he's going to have the biggest market, given that he missed basically most of the season with an ankle injury. So be curious to see what they do with him, but I think I err more on the side of him coming back.
And remember, the Lions have to add 90 guys. Just because they get invited to training camp and are on the 90-man roster does not mean they'll make the 53. So they can, just like they did when they signed Kenny Yeboah and Shane Zylstra, and that was kind of the tight end 3 battle in training camp, and then Yeboah got hurt, and it was that's the end of that. Mm-hmm. They could totally do that again with Zylstra and somebody else, and then the winner of that gets the roster spot. Yeah.
Tight end Anthony Ferkser, kind of the same deal, but maybe a little less sought after, I think, generally. He's a lot older than I realized. He's something like 31. He's played for a long time, so I think they like that familiarity. I'm sure that they would love to bring him back as maybe a camp body. But at the same time, he is kind of getting a little long in the tooth, so I wonder if they'll give that roster spot to somebody who's a little bit more, a little bit younger, ready to compete, and brings maybe some sort of long-term potential to the table.
Yeah, I could see one of Zylstra or Ferkser getting the tight end whatever spot heading into training camp, and they have to compete with whoever this year's version of Kenny Yeboah is going to be.
Yeah. We got 4 offensive linemen going into free agency here. None of them are out-and-out starters. We've got Dan Skipper, offensive tackle. We've got Jamarco Jones, offensive tackle. And then we've got 2 interior guys, Coyote Awashika and Tristan Colon. Again, I don't know what to make of Skipper, just given the fact that he did not make the roster out of camp. But again, I don't disagree with you that they told us what they feel about him. But also, last season was the first time in his entire career that he made the 53-man roster out of camp. And so while I think they'd like to have a higher floor offensive tackle in there for games where you need to put your reserve in as a starter, but hard to kind of say with him right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, this will be the last time I'll say it, so I don't repeat it every time. 90 guys. So like you said, Skipper only last year was that he made the initial roster coming out of training camp. Like, could come back and just be the practice squad guy again.
Yeah,
which is a role that he's played for 8 of his 9 years in the NFL.
But they definitely did try to bring in some competition.
Absolutely.
I think ideally beat him out. The primary guy being Jamarco Jones, but he suffered a season-ending injury in training camp. Was it before the preseason game, or was that somebody else? There was a guy.
I know who you're talking about before the preseason. It was not Jamarco Jones.
Yeah.
It was somebody else who broke his arm before the Atlanta
freak
game.
accident. Just literally just watching warm-ups, all of a sudden there's a guy in an air cast. So pretty wild stuff. Coyote Awashika and Tristan Colon, 2 interior guys who played significant snaps this season. I am hesitant to say that I could see a world where they bring Coyote back, because when they put him in there, he was not very good. And I guess same goes for Tristan Colon. But
he was also a healthy scratch at one point when they were down offensive lineman. Coyote was.
Yes. Tristan Colon, I could see a little bit better of an argument for bringing him back, just because he does bring a little bit as kind of that jumbo offensive lineman.
And he can also play center and guard.
Yep. So I think if I had to pick between those two, which I'm not saying they will, but I have a hard time believing Coyote is going to be back after how things went this season.
I agree. I mean, for multiple reasons. One, because he was the healthy scratch in that one game. And then when they were down, interior offensive lineman. And then secondly, the fact that you do get snapping ability from Cologne that you don't get from Coyote. Coyote can play tackle. I don't think Cologne can play tackle. But I think snapping is probably more valuable.
I don't know how much Coyote can actually play tackle, though. I think they put him out there when they were down to their offensive tackle 4 at the end of the season that has been riddled with injuries. I don't necessarily know that's evidence that he can play tackle.
Sure, but I don't know. At least it's on the resume. It's not.
No, it's not. It's really not.
I can speak 2 languages. I put it on my resume.
It's like reading a book out loud in Spanish and being like, I can speak Spanish.
I think the defense has a couple more, at least at the top, interesting names. 2 names that I'm thinking of off the top.
Yeah, 19 defenders. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, one of them being, we'll go again in order by position, so we won't hit the top 2 back to back, but we'll start with one, Alex Anzalone. That's probably the biggest one, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was a guy who has been at the forefront of this culture turnaround. He was a guy who was looking for a new contract kind of towards last year. And,
he was loud about it in the offseason.
Nobody feels bad for these millionaires and the amount of money they make, but he just has had unfortunate timing on his contracts. After the 2023 season, he re-ups on I think it was after the 22 season, he re-upped on a 3-year deal. And at that point, nobody on the defense was playing good at all. And he was probably playing better than anybody, but it still was not the product around him didn't look good. So he didn't really have a strong argument for making that much money. I think his current contract is 3 years, $18 million. So he gets better. The team gets better.
He's outplayed that contract.
And he's at the forefront of this success. And one of the biggest linchpins in it all, because you saw what happened to that defense during the 2024 season. He breaks his arm. That's when everything falls apart. They had withstood several injuries to that point, and then he broke his arm, I think week 10, and things just absolutely fell off a cliff.
I mean, I think back to that Bills game where the running back, Ty Johnson, ate him up. And Alex Anzalone's bread and butter is coverage, obviously.
Yeah.
He's the coverage to Jack Campbell's run defense. But that Buffalo game, that San Francisco game, they really missed him, where Kittle ate him alive and their running backs. I remember writing in one story last year that I took the running back and tight end receiving totals of all the games that Alex played in and Alex missed, and the discrepancy was just enormous. It was over 100 yards difference.
Yeah. That being said, I don't necessarily think he's been the same player this season in terms of his impact, at least the eye test jumping right out at you. I don't think he's been as everywhere as he seemed in seasons past. I'm curious to see what happens, because I think going into this year, we thought that he would get something towards the top of the market deal, maybe not resetting the market, but something towards the top 5, top 10, whatever it is. Now, I mean, he might still get it because he's a veteran who's got a good resume in this league, but I am kind of unsure about what kind of contract he's going to get.
I think what holds me up is Jack's going to get paid shortly. Barnes just got, what was it, 8.5, 7.5?
8.5.
8.5 a year. And Alex, that's a lot of money to commit to your 3 linebackers. And that's if they stay in a base 3 linebacker defense. We've talked about, potentially changing things this offseason. So I just think it would be a lot of money to pay to 3 linebackers. I think it has less to do with Alex and more to do about his age, which I guess is related to Alex, but his age and the people, younger players around him getting paid.
Yeah. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, could absolutely see him coming back on a new deal. Could also see him just wanting to kind of get out of here and go find a place where he can compete for a starting job. Because right now, the reality of the way the Lions have structured these contracts, like Derek Barnes is getting paid as a starter, he's going to be a starter. Jack Campbell getting paid as a starter, he's going to be a starter. So maybe he does take over some of those, will linebacker snaps for Anzalone next season. Maybe that's good enough for him. Like, okay, cool, new opportunity, whatever. I also wouldn't be surprised at all if he was like, look, I've put in 4 good years here. I'm a special teams demon. I know that I can go somewhere else and at least do that while also potentially having the opportunity to start or even play a little bit more on defense. But he's in kind of a weird position because he missed almost all of his, contract year with an injury. So, yeah.
That's what it is for me, is that he missed all that time. So maybe it would behoove him to come back on a 1-year deal with expanded will opportunities. And now he gets to hit the market again next year with all of the special team stuff that he does great, now with an extra 200 defensive snaps that he didn't have before.
Yeah. Linebacker Grant Stewart, another guy who is a special teams demon. But maybe like when he came here, he said he wanted the opportunity to compete for, defensive snaps and stuff like that. That didn't necessarily happen this year. He was obviously an important part of the special teams unit, a core special teamer. He was returning kicks for this team at one point, but can't say with any sort of certainty whether he is going to be back this year because that defense part didn't really ever come to fruition for him.
Right. Part of also what he said about why he came here was wanting to play like in the culture, and he quickly became a team captain, first-time captain for them. Actually, in his career, first-time captain. He had never been a captain before. So part of me wonders, like, what will he value that again this offseason? Will he like, I really want to stay in Detroit? Or maybe, I don't know, maybe that culture has lost some of the luster in an 8-8 or 9-8 or 8-9 season. So we'll see.
Linebacker Trevor Nowaski, he's a restricted free agent. I think they'll bring him back. They've invested a lot into him. He's been around since he was an undrafted free agent. Obviously left for a little bit of time to go to Arizona. He was a waiver claim. Detroit was not happy about that. They ended up stealing him back off waivers, I believe. And he's been, he's been a good special teamer. He's been reliable for them on defense. So I think that they have kind of invested a little bit in his future and would like to keep him around.
And he's played small roles along the way. Like he had a sack on Lamar Jackson. Like he spied. He was a QB spy on Lamar Jackson in that week 3 game against Baltimore. And then also to end the preseason, he wore the green dot in the preseason finale. Yeah. Like they do put him in different spots. Like you said, it seems like they have invested in his development a little bit.
Linebacker Zach Cunningham. Not really. We can lump him together with Ezekiel Turner. Different players for sure. Zach Cunningham was getting, some decent defensive workload. They kept bringing him over. But as far as his role on the team, I don't really think he has one. And so, again, a guy who is a little bit older, past his prime, has played some really good seasons of football, but not in a while. But a guy who was reliable on defense. So could go either way. I would lean towards bringing him back. Maybe Ezekiel Turner, maybe not.
Yeah, especially because Turner's coming off the Achilles, I believe, that he suffered in training camp. So that was unfortunate.
And Turner was a guy, not to spend too much time on it, but Turner was a guy who had literally never played defense before over his 5-year NFL
then he
career.
Made the tackle.
And then on Jordan Love. Tackle.
I mean, you had this tackle is etched in the lore of this podcast's history.
All right, let's go on to defensive end. First up, we got Al-Quadin Muhammad. This is going to be, they're going to want to bring him back, absolutely. But he also, they didn't trust him to play the run, like I said earlier in the show. And he only played 40% of snaps at a time where they really needed some help at defensive end. So, I'd like to think that they bring him back. They could get priced out of his services just because of the season that he had. 11.5 sacks, I believe he's sitting at right now. But, yeah.
I'm super conflicted on Muhammad because on one hand, part of me is like you said, he only played 42, 43, whatever it is, percentage of snaps. So on one hand, I'm like, you don't trust that guy to play against the run on first and second down. You just don't. You've proved that to us this season. So if it's going to cost $8 million to bring him back, do you want to do that for a guy that's a third down specialist on a pass rush that, like we talked about earlier in the show, has left some to be desired? That's one hand. The other hand is there are a lot of like underlying metrics that are really good. Like he's always produced pressures like across his time here in Detroit. And now that he does have, 11 sacks or something like that this year, 10 sacks, 10 and a half. And he had like 6.5 1 year in Indianapolis. Like he has shown that like when he gets this opportunity, he can play well. So that's also tugging at me. I think there is a price limit though, just because of how the role that you play him in. Even if you bump his snaps up a little bit, at max, like he's like a 50% snap guy because of how you value things in your defense. Maybe that changes next year. You change things on the defensive scheme. You value run defense less, and you value pass rush more. But from what you've shown us, I don't think you can pay more than $6.5 million for a guy like that. And because of his production this year, he might have priced himself out of that range.
Yeah. Up next, defensive end Marcus Davenport. I'm just a swift no.
I think you tried it twice and
Didn't work either time.
Didn't work either time. The injuries are unfortunate. Not his fault, but it is what it is. You can't bet on it again.
Yeah. Defensive tackles. We've got DJ Reader. He's up first. I think he's definitely a no. We'll see what he wants on his next contract.
I think that's what it is. What he wants.
Again, a guy who nose tackles. That's not a numbers producing position, but at the same time, he produced like quite literally.
You also drafted his
close to zero.
You also drafted his replacement in the first round this year. You drafted that guy has to start next year, and Aleem is not coming off the field in terms of a starting role. So I think you drafted Tyleek with the intention of this being DJ's last year. Now, if he says I'll come back in a reserve role for $1 million or for a minimum, well then maybe. But as a starter, I think that is over in Detroit.
Roy Lopez, defensive tackle, 100% yes. Whatever it takes. Give him the keys to the city. Blank check.
So that's my only issue is like he's played awesome, like over expectations, like amazingly, but it's like has he priced himself out now at this point? Kind of a little bit less, but kind of like an Al-Quadin Muhammad conversation where it's like, is he too much money for the role that he'd play? Again, he's not going to start here, not with Tyleek, not with Aleem. But could he be DT3 and you pay him as such? I think he got $3 million this past offseason, so maybe. Does 4 get it done? Like, you know what I mean? And then, I'm all for it. But again, if you approach anything more 5, 6, it's like, oh, man, for that role, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Up next, I don't necessarily know that we should lump these guys together per se, but I think they are kind of in similar situations. We got Levi Onwuzurike, Josh Paschal. Neither of them played this season. Both of them picked up injuries during the offseason. Paschal had offseason back surgery. Levi had a torn ACL. Again, neither of them played. There was hope that Josh Paschal would come back some point in September. They ultimately ended up activating his practice window in November, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, first time that I've seen, I haven't been on this beat very long, but it was the first time that I've seen somebody have their acclimation window open, and then at the end of it, the team says either, you're not healthy enough to help us, or
we're good unironically.
Yeah. Or just you can't help us even when healthy.
Right. I've never seen that either. Again, haven't been covering the NFL for that long. Yeah. But I also have not seen that either. On the topic of bringing either back, I do see again, the value in if either of them are down for the 1 year minimum, because
I don't with Paschal.
I think Paschal is the opposite of Al-Quadin Muhammad, where you don't trust him to rush the passer, but you trust him to defend the run on first and second down. He is the yin to Muhammad's yang.
But do I really trust him to play run deep? Like, you're getting at best, like
an adequate run defender?
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. I said I wouldn't bring it up again, but you got to fill the 90-man roster, like an adequate run defender. Sure. Come back. If you're willing to come back on a 1 year deal,
I don't think you can. And there's no upside to it.
And also, we have seen with Brad Holmes, not only with his draft picks, because he tried it with Levi, he gave Levi had some injury issues, and then he gave him the 1 year deal this year to try, and he ended up getting hurt again, so it didn't work out. But we've seen him they signed Emmanuel Mosley 1 year, he got hurt, and they said, let's try again, and they gave him the 1 year deal. They signed Marcus Davenport for 1 year, it didn't work. They said, let's try again, and it didn't work.
Both those guys were really good starters in the league before they got hurt. I think Paschal has never really.
Last year, Paschal, when everyone got hurt, Paschal had 40 pressures and was a fine run defender.
40 pressures?
Yes.
Look it up.
I know.
Look it up.
I remember. I'm telling you right now.
Well, still less than Levi Onwuzurike.
he's a very fine football player, which is you're looking to fill the roster.
Very fine is
34 pressures last year.
34 pressures. Maybe a little bit more than I expected, but still, I mean,
if he wants to come back on a 1-year deal, and we've seen Brad Holmes with these 1-year deals of players coming off of injuries before.
He's had too many injuries. And I don't think you could obviously argue the same thing about Levi.
Yeah.
Jinx. But there's more upside with Levi. Like as a player.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Pascal gave you a 34 pressure season last year.
Levi gave you a 47 pressure season.
Yeah, absolutely. So both of them.
From the interior.
Well, he played a lot on the edge.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But
so, no, I think there's upside to both of them if they're willing to come back on the minimum.
I'm over expecting upside from Josh Pascal. Nice guy, but
I view both of them in my head in a similar light. More versatility from Levi for sure.
Yeah.
So plus there.
Yeah,
but
we'll see. Tyrus Wheat, he's a restricted free agent again. Probably would expect to see him back. I mean, like he was kind of a weird case this season where they claimed him off waivers. They barely played him, but every time he played,
like okay.
you sack in the corner.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to make of him. I would imagine they bring him back.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Agreed. The other, I think the top three most interesting is Anzalone, Alquin Muhammad, and then the third one here as we get to cornerbacks, Amik Robertson.
Absolutely. What are you thinking?
So part of me is like, this past 2 months maybe that he's him and DJ Reed have not been playing well. Some of the worst in terms of just like coverage yards surrendered.
He's arguably been the face of this defensive collapse.
Yeah, they've been both of them, but we're not talking about DJ right now. Amik has not played well. Though there is the argument to say he is playing out of position. Like he absolutely is. He's a slot guy. And that's where he's played best in this defense. He's playing as a nickel. So maybe there is value on just giving him the same contract that he got when he came in, because he came here on a 2-year, $9 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. So he's 2 years older, and he was so valuable in 2024. Even when he did play out of position, he was a fine starter, which was great. He was really good in the nickel and then was fine on the outside. This year, he was good in the nickel and then not great when you bumped him outside. So maybe you just re-up on a similar deal, a 2-year $8 million, 2-year $9 million, and you feel good, but he has to be your nickel. He's not going to be your outside guy.
And you can't guarantee him a starting nickel spot. I think that's where...
Well, he'll battle with Rakestraw.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can bet on Ennis securing a starting role. And again, no fault of his own. It just is what it is. Like, he had injury history coming out, 2 years derailed by injury. He just can't be a part of the plans, but he can certainly compete for a spot. So between Amik and Ennis, one of you win the job.
Yeah, maybe one more. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Rocky Scene. This is probably the guy I'm most inclined to bring back for whatever
awesome.
reason. Like he has been every bit of the physical man corner that they signed up for. And when the chips were down, they counted on him regularly. And outside of 1 or 2 games, I thought he was above average. I thought he played good football.
I thought he was awesome. And this is a side tangent. We've talked about the shortcomings of Brad Holmes this year, where maybe didn't adjust the pass rush as much as he needed to, maybe didn't plan a succession plan at center. I will say, if we're going to criticize, to also give him credit, these little 1-year deals that he's found sprinkled in.
Mm-hmm.
Roy Lopez was awesome for 1 year, $3 million. Rocky Scene was awesome for 1 year minimum salary. And a lot of these other guys as well. I mean, Amik Robertson, like I said, 2 for 9. Great, though he has struggled over the last month and a half to 2 months, that he gave you more value than 2 years, $9 million over the last 2 years. So to give him credit there, to add about Yassine, I'm full on board. Yeah, I'd bring him back.
Blank check.
Yeah. I'm on board with bringing him back. We've seen it in these last couple games with Amik and Rock healthy. They've put Rock on the outside. They trust Rock. He's been great. There's no reason to not bring him back unless he has priced himself out, which I don't think he's played that well to command $7 million.
He's a guy who's always been pretty good, but for whatever reason has continued to bounce around the
league. He's on his 5th team in 5 years.
Yeah. And definitely not character at all either, because he's a great guy. Everybody genuinely loves him. He could not be more low key, chill, but smart, and
he's very much a veteran's veteran. He's quiet. He's not. You don't got to worry about Rocky Scene being disruptive at all.
Yeah.
The perfect example of that is that Philly game. I remember after the game where he gets asked about the PI that wasn't or that shouldn't have been called on him while defending AJ Brown, and his teammates so the reporter asks it, and his teammates around him start being that was BS. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Rocco shut it down. Everyone, and then he gave a very he got his point across that he didn't think it was a PI, but also did it eloquently. You know what I mean? So he's very much a veteran's veteran. He has given you good play on the field. No reason to not bring him back.
Cornerback Arthur Mollett, a guy who got snaps during the Legion of Whom game and some other games that followed it.
Had an interception, if I'm not mistaken, in that Legion of Whom game.
Yeah, absolutely. And but ultimately kind of fizzled out. And again, maybe a camp body for sure. He's played some good football in this league, but at the end of the season, the shine had kind of worn off, and you couldn't really trust him as much.
He's another guy. I forgot who you mentioned this about earlier. Another guy that I think is a little bit older than I thought. He's played. Yeah, Art's played some seasons in the NFL. I thought he was like a Nick Whiteside.
Yeah,
no, he's not. I discovered that early in the season. I was like, oh, this guy's played.
Safety Jalen Mills, impossible to say. I mean, he was with the team for 2 weeks. Yeah. We saw him a little bit in this Vikings game, I believe.
Yep.
After Thomas Harper went down, but
impossible to say.
Sure.
Yeah.
90-man roster invite, totally. 2 other safeties. Daniel Thomas, I think he'll be back. I think he'll be back.
They claimed him when he was and this team doesn't do that a lot. I feel like they when they claim their guys, they really like certain guys. They claimed him. Not only claimed him, they used an IR to return spot on him.
Yes. So
they see value in him. He got on the field as a safety when the injuries piled up, but I think as a special teamer, they really, really like him.
They used an IR to return spot on him on a season where they were clearly very scared to use their IR to return spots because of the amount of injuries they had the season before.
And that was early in the season. He broke his arm against Baltimore in week 3. They didn't know what future injuries or not were going to happen the rest of the way. I think they value Daniel Thomas a lot. I think he's back.
Absolutely. Same with Avonte Maddox. I mean, he came on towards the end of the season. I think he missed last game with an injury, but up until that point, I thought he'd been pretty good when called upon.
Agreed. Yeah.
So
he's played decently at safety in the wake of injuries to Joseph and Branch.
He's a guy who I could see actually trying to go out and maybe signing with a team, like a bad team that could use a plug and play
starter
safety.
Yeah, a veteran.
Could absolutely see that. So I guess we'll see there. Then Jake Bates, he wraps us up here. He's an exclusive rights free agent, so
there's no reason to believe that he's not going to come back.
All right, like I said, we're going to skip the Bears preview for this one. It's a game that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, the defense gets a lot of turnovers. Offense is the run game's humming. That's
where are the Lions in terms of draft position entering this week?
The Lions entering this week, if we fire up Tankathon, which you haven't had to fire up in the past few seasons.
In my time covering the Lions, Tankathon has been a figment of my imagination.
15th, they are currently projected. Obviously, they can finish no better. Or excuse me, well, if you're talking about draft position, no better. But their record can be no worse than 8-9. So there's some stuff with strength of schedule, which will fluctuate over the last week of the season, depending who wins and who loses where. But the top 10 is out of the question because the Bengals are 6-10, and the Lions cannot have a worse record than that. The Miami Dolphins are currently slated to pick 11th at 7-9. Again, strength of schedule will fluctuate, so maybe 11th. They can't get as high as quite to 11th. In reality, you're probably talking anywhere between 12, 13 on the low end, and then on the high end, if they win, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah.
So mid-teens, probably.
Yeah. Which is good because even if you end up at 15, you're within striking distance to kind of do whatever you want.
Absolutely.
If you have a guy that you like at 8, it's not a huge jump. That's probably where the line stops or something like that. But like I said, if you like a guy in the top 10, you can go get him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we'll see how that goes. But all right, let's run through some NFC North picks here. Lions +3 against the Bears. I got the Bears. A lot more to play for. They're still in contention for the 1 seed. They won't know whether they're still in contention for the 1 seed by the time this game starts. And so, they're not in contention for the 1 seed.
2-3.
They are still fighting for the 2 seed against Philadelphia.
And Philly plays Washington.
Yeah, at 4:25. So same time as the Lions. So they won't know what's happening with that game. And they're just going to have to try and go win it because I would imagine that if push comes to shove in the NFC Championship game, that is a pretty significant difference in seeding.
Playing in Chicago versus playing in Philly?
Yeah. Lions, on the other hand, will be missing some guys, evidently.
I'm picking the Bears.
Amon-Ra, McNeil.
I'm also picking the Bears for all the reasons that you said.
Yeah. But at the same time, can I say? kind of like gut check for a Dan Campbell team. Again, season's over. All that other stuff.
Season's over.
But like, would like to see it.
Season's over.
Would like to see it.
The season's over.
You know, would like to see it.
Packers are sitting their starters, it appears, because they have nothing to play for. They are locked into the 7th seed for I think the 3rd straight year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they are 7 seed merchants. People are saying that if it weren't for the expansion of the NFL playoffs, Matt LaFleur would be fired. That's what people are saying online. I'm not saying that.
So because of them sitting their starters and having nothing to play for in this game, they are 7.5-point underdogs at Minnesota. Minnesota's humming. What are they, 4-0 over their last 4?
Yeah.
They're back to 8-8 on the season, back to 500. The defense looks as scary as ever. JJ might play this week, might not, but also might. Packers plus 7.5 at the Vikings. I'm going to pick the Vikings to win, but by less than 7.5 points. So I'm going to take the Packers plus the points.
I am going to go with the Packers.
Gotcha.
No reason. Because why not?
Because why not?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I think they'll probably lose, but
7.5 points is a big spread.
Yeah, it's a big spread. All right, best bet. Do you have a best bet? I don't think you have a best bet, but I have a best bet.
You have a best bet.
My best bet is Steelers plus 3.5 against the Ravens. I don't think the Steelers are going to lose that game. I really don't. There's something about the Steelers team in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to get it done, but also those 3.5 points are really, really nice. I expect this to be a close game regardless, but Mike Tomlin, home underdog, give me the Steelers every single time.
I'm going to pick the Ravens to win. They're not my best bet, but I am going to pick the Ravens. I'm going to pick Lamar Jackson in crunch time.
Unbelievable. Hopefully he doesn't have to go to the bathroom when it matters most.
Let's wrap up with the blind ranking.
All right, let's rack up with the blind ranking. So we are going to Chicago this weekend. Is that right?
Correct.
That's right. And what is Chicago known as?
Deep dish pizza.
No. They're known as the
Windy
City. There we go. And so you are going to blind rank city nicknames.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah. So I've got 5 here for you, and we'll see what you think about them.
So I'm not ranking the city. I'm ranking
Correct.
the nickname.
You're ranking the nickname
Okay.
and how good it is.
Okay.
We will start with Chicago, the Windy City.
Windy City's hard. I can't lie. I don't want to put them at 1, just because I think you shouldn't do that with your first option. I'm going to put the Windy City at 2.
Why?
I think it's just really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
You like wind?
No, I just think it's cool. The Windy City.
Do you know why they call it the Windy City?
Because it's windy on the water.
No, it's not actually. It's because of the politicians. A bunch of gas bags over there. Something about that. They're blowing lots of wind apparently.
I got Windy City at number 2.
Cool. I'm not even kidding. That's literally why everybody thinks it's because of the wind, but it's not.
Got it.
I don't think you believe me.
I don't.
He's Googling it right now. Let's look up.
Don't
go off the AI
Why
results.
is the Windy City called the Windy City?
Use windy.
Well, the AI results confirm what you said.
Wow. Okay. Shout out the AI overview,
Anyway.
which you should not trust people at all.
No, you shouldn't. Anyway,
It's almost always wrong,
number 2.
except for in this exact situation. We're going to go to your hometown, New York, the Big Apple.
Off of principle, I have to put it number 1. I'm sorry.
Wow.
And also, the Big Apple's cool.
Is it?
Yeah.
What's cool about an apple?
What's cool about wind?
It's like it says something about for people who do think that the Windy City is named after the wind. It is cool. It's like we persevere. Like this is a thing that we deal with every day, and we just get over it. The Big Apple. It's like, what does that even mean?
Have you ever heard of an apple day keeps the doctor away?
Yeah. Have you? When's the last time you had an apple?
Actually, apples are fruit I'll eat.
Really?
Yeah.
When's the last time you had one?
I can't remember, but
Can't remember.
But I will eat. If there was an apple in front of me, I would eat the apple.
Okay. The Motor City.
Man, that's cool as well.
Detroit, Michigan.
All of these are cool.
Yeah.
I guess I have to put it at 3 because it's the highest that I have left. But I'm leaving 4 and 5 open. Motor City is very cool. I can't lie. I'd probably put Motor City over Windy City.
Okay. I'd probably put it over the Big Apple because Big Apple just doesn't even make any sense. Up next, Boston, Massachusetts. We got Beantown.
Beantown. I like Beantown. I'm going to put it at 5.
Okay. Don't like it that much.
Yeah, I like Motor City, Windy City, and Big Apple much more than Beantown. So I'm going to keep the 4 spot open.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go now. These have been kind of 4 top of market type of nicknames here. We're gonna go off the beaten path here. We're gonna go Emerald City, Seattle, Washington.
Well, I can only put them at 4, so I'm going to put them at 4. And I think I like the list outside of I would have put Motor City at 2. So
My final results is Big Apple 1, Windy City 2, Motor City 3, Emerald City 4, Beantown 5. I think I like it, except I would have swapped Windy City and Motor City at 2 and 3.
I think Emerald City is really underrated. You think of like a city made of jewels?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Shall we sign off?
Have you heard of the improv term, yes and?
No.
You should look it up. All right. Thank you for everybody listening to today's episode of Gridiron Gang. Like I said, press that subscribe button. I've been a little too sappy on these episodes over these last couple episodes, with the Christmas episodes. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but again, thank you for helping us have a wonderful year. We've had so much fun covering this team for you guys, talking to you guys about this team, talking with you guys about this team. It's been the thrill of a lifetime. And here is to a great 2026.
Yeah. Happy New Year to all.
Happy New Year to all. For Nolan, Bianchi, Richard Silva, we will see you guys after Sunday's game against the Chicago Bears. And in the meantime, check DetroitNews.com for all of your Detroit Lions coverage.